Port St. Lucie News, late breaking at 5. I'm Jaylee.
And I'm Chloe. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're taking a deeper look at a topic that's been widely debated across the United States: how family background and violent video games may influence youth violence.
This conversation has gained a lot of attention in the recent years, especially as video games have become more realistic and more popular among young people. Many parents and community members are asking, are video games really to blame? Or is there more going on beneath the surface?
To answer that question, we're looking at two major research articles that explore this issue from different perspectives. The first comes from researchers DeCamp and Ferguson, who have focused on long-term behavioral patterns in youth.
In their article, DeCamp and Ferguson used large-scale surveys along with advanced statistical analysis to examine whether there was a link between violent video games and use and aggressive behavior. They specifically looked at how often kids played violent video games and compared that to the behaviors such as fighting, bullying, or physically hurting each other.
At first, their findings suggested that there might be a small connection between violent video game use and aggression. However, the key part of their study came when they controlled for other important variables.
Right, these variables included factors like family, environment, parenting style, social economic status, and exposure to real-life violence at home. Once those factors were taken into account, the connection between video games and aggressive behavior essentially disappeared.
According to their article, this means that the video games themselves were not a meaningful predictor of youth violence. Instead, the strongest predictors were related to a child's environment, especially what they experienced at home.
In the discussion section of their article, DeCamp and Ferguson explained that society often looks for simple explanations for complex problems. Video games, they argued, became an easy target.
But their research shows that focusing only on video games can distract from more serious issues like family conflict, lack of supervision, or exposure to real-world violence.
Their overall conclusion is clear. Social and family factors play a much larger role in shaping youth behavior than video games do.
Now let's turn to the second article, written by Anderson and his colleagues. Their approach was different, focusing on more short-term psychological effects.
In their study, Anderson and his team used controlled experiments as well as a review of previous research to analyze how violent video games might influence aggression.
Their findings showed that playing violent video games can lead to an increase in aggressive thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, especially in the short term, right after gameplay.
For example, players might feel more irritated, then more aggressively, or react more quickly with anger in certain situations.
However, the article also emphasizes that these effects are generally small to moderate. Importantly, they do not necessarily translate into serious acts of violence in real life.
In the discussion of the article, Anderson and his team acknowledged that while there is a measurable effect, it's only one piece of how much larger the bigger puzzle is.
So, when we compare both articles, we start to see a more complete picture.
The DeCamp and Ferguson study highlights long-term influences and shows that family and social environments are the strongest predictors of violent video games.
Meanwhile, the Anderson study shows that video games can have short-term effects on aggression, but those effects are limited and not necessarily long-lasting.
Together, these articles suggest that the issue of youth violence is complex and cannot be explained by a single factor.
Exactly. It's not accurate to say that video games cause violence, but it's also not entirely correct to say that they have no effect at all.
Instead, behavior is shaped by a combination of influences, including home life, emotional well-being, peer relationships, and to a similar extent, media exposure.
This raises an important question. Why do video games often receive so much of the blame?
Experts suggest that it's because video games are highly visible and easy to point to. When something goes wrong, people often look for a clear, immediate cause.
Meanwhile, deeper issues like family instability or emotional struggles are harder to identify and address.
These articles also suggest that focusing too much on video games can prevent meaningful solutions.
For example, if attention is placed only on limiting screen time, families and communities might overlook the importance of communication, support, and stable environments.
Another important point that both articles is that millions of young people play violent video games, yet the vast majority do not engage in violent behavior.
That tells us there must be other more significant factors at play.
Parenting style is one of these factors. Researchers shows that children who have supportive, involved parents are less likely to develop aggressive behaviors.
On the other hand, environments with high levels of stress, conflict, or neglect can increase the risk.
Schools and communities also play a role. Positive environments, strong mentorship, and access to resources can help guide young people towards healthy behavior.
So what should families take away from these articles?
Experts recommend a balanced approach rather than focusing solely on video games. Parents should pay attention to the overall well-being of their children.
That includes maintaining open communication, setting appropriate boundaries, and being involved in their children's daily lives.
It also means understanding what games their children are playing and discussing the content with them rather than simply banning it.
Teaching kids how to manage emotions like anger and frustration is another key step.
At the end of the day, both articles point to the same conclusion. Youth violence is influenced by many different factors, and not singly cause can fully explain it.
Video games may have some short-term effects, as shown as Anderson's research, but long-term behavior is much more strongly shaped by family and social environments, as shown as in the study of DeCamp and Ferguson.
Now, we didn't just rely on academic research. We also went out into Port St. Lucie community to hear from local residents, and here's what they had to say.
Guys, so today we're here with Amir, and he's going to tell us his opinion. So do you think that playing video games can cause violence in youth, or do you think it's more of home factors and other factors?
To be honest, I think it's more of like both. I mean, depending on what type of video games you can play, you like copy things that you see, and usually you pick up habits based on what you do. So if you're like playing a violent video game, you might pick up some habits that you see yourself doing in an online virtual world. And then on top of that, if you have like an irresponsible parent at home, you know, doing violent things, you might pick up habits from there. So it all depends on what you see and how things are, you know what I'm saying? It's it's like habits that you pick up as you go on and as you live. You'll see things like if you see like a father figure, you know, hypothetically, you know, being violent with someone else, you might pick up that habit too, especially that's someone you look up to. But even when you like play a video game, you know, if it's a violent video game, you have to give a few examples. You know, like Fortnite or something, you see like inappropriate things such as, you know, unaliving, you know what I'm saying? So you can just pick up habits, and it all depends on how you treat what you see as well. So if I see something violent, I might pick up like that habit, you know? So it could be a factor of both, to be honest.
Okay, we're also here with Joshua, and he's going to tell us his opinion. So do you think that video games causes violence in youth, or do you think it's more home factored or a mixture of both?
No, I think it's more. So I think it's a mix between home factors and video games. So home factors can definitely have a problem with like fighting at the house, causing fights in schools, and like playing video games can definitely influence like their behavior. They start cussing out their parents or inappropriate language they're using. It's just like it gets worse and worse from there. So home factors will definitely make like a big difference, because if there's a problem at the home and they're not getting along with their family, they won't be getting along with their friends and teachers and people that really like they see the day-to-day basis. So inappropriate games, video games, and home factors both have influence, but home factors can cause like worse and worse problems. It'll make the situation worse than it already is, and guns is definitely more of a home situation, not a video game.
Last person that we're interviewing is going to be Khalil, so just tell us a little bit about what you think. Do you think that video games causes violence in youth, or do you think it's more home social factors? Just expand a little bit on it.
So I do think video games cause violence in youth. You know, a lot of them do promote violence, you know. I think it's a big problem we have today. I feel like, you know, some factors of video games, you know, very aggressive and vulgar language, the things they do, you know, I feel like a kid could get the wrong idea and think, you know, that they could do that in real life, or, you know, they want to do that when they grow up. Overall, I think